Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Hare Krishna to all the devotees. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class in the new year. Wishing you all a very happy Krishna conscious new year in 2024. And I hope all of you have a very blissful and fully conscious new year in this year, wherein we are able to spend sufficient time in our sadhana, in our practice, and reading Srimad Bhagavatam, listening Krishna Katha, so that we are able to all advance in our spiritual journey. Before we start off our today's class, we'll first start off by reciting our prayers, asking permission from Parampara to discuss the spiritual subjects. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalaakaya Chakshuram Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Gurun Shri Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahaganan Raghunathanvitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadhutam parijana sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saganan Lalitan Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari
Who is
Vrishabhanu
he?
Devi Paramani Hari वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम रामा हरे हरे. Please recite along with me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Taram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. Ayeshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamalini Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangrehe Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha नमो ब्राह्मण्य देवाय गो ब्राह्मण हिताय च जगत हिताय कृष्णाय गोविंदाय नमो नमः नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं तीरतारणं प्राणमरमानन्दं माधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम् पवित्रो पवित्रो वा सर्वावस्थं गतोपया यत्स्मरेत् पुण्डरीकाक्षं सभयाभयन्तरं सखी श्री विष्णु Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam to all the assembled devotees today for today's morning class. Once again, wish you all a very, very happy New Year, Krishna conscious New Year. And it's very interesting that today, we start with the fifth canto. And personally, I was just reflecting on when I read the first chapter. I was reflecting that perhaps this is so apt that we are starting the fifth canto, first chapter on start of the new year. And I'll tell you why my thoughts behind this is that first of all, congratulations to all of you for completing the 4 cantos of reading. And we started in Canto 3 with the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. And we looked at, Swayambhuva Manu had 5 children, 3 daughters and 2 sons. Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti were the daughters, and Uttarapada and Priyavrata were the 2 sons. In Canto 3, first we started with, Devahuti, and then we went into that lineage over there. And in Canto 4, then we went to Uttarapada, Dhruva Maharaj, and all the way up to the Prachetas. And Priyavrata was the second son of Swayambhuva Manu, but he had renounced material life very early on. And he had retired actually. So he was not interested in any kind of material life. After the Prachetas, Daksha Maharaj goes away for austerities. So there's nobody to govern and rule. So Swayambhuva Manu has no choice but to go back to Priyavrata, requesting him for permission to come back to material life, and requesting him to take up the material order and govern and rule. And so chapter 1 essentially of Canto 5 deals with that topic. But what is also very interesting is that in the first few shlokas you will see is that we touch upon some very important and interesting subjects. And if you will read through the purports of Prabhupada, wherein he goes through in detail, and it's a very good kind of a recap for all of us who are in the Grahastha ashram. Mostly majority of us are in the Grahastha ashram, and we are trying to make spiritual progress. And it's also, we will be, I'm sure as you will also reflect, you will see that there will be many connections that you will be able to connect to your lives and the reality that we live in. Personally, for me, every year we take an annual break, and during that annual break time, my sadhana at least becomes a little less. I see that, I do my chanting, but beyond that, I'm not doing my Mangalarti during that time. And then, the association also reduces because we're taking a holiday or something like that. And when I came back, I started, I was also feeling that, uh, I was feeling a little bit disconnected when I actually resumed my full day sadhana, starting with the Mangalarti every day. I was feeling a bit disconnected. I said, it's not feeling right in that first day. And then, of course, from the second day back, I came back to normal. And I was feeling very good about it. And that is when I was also reading this first canto. I was watching a few videos by very senior devotees. And I saw this interesting video by Sri Anandaram Prabhuji from ISKCON Chowpatty. And he shared his insight about why devotees fall. And he mentioned some very important facts. And then he said, the if we are to I just had these two takeaways. And he said, one thing he said was, explaining Krishna consciousness in 4 lines, which he said, that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. We are not the body, we are the soul. Number 3 is that we are the eternal servitors of God. And number 4 is that devotional service is the only way to satisfy Him, the Supreme Personality of God. And to remain in that Krishna consciousness, he also said that there are 3 very, very important things that we should not forget. One was the 4 regulative principles and attentiveness in japa. 2 was he spoke about association, sadhu sangha. And he also spoke about intimate association, the importance of intimate association, how important that is in our spiritual progress. And number 3 was service. And when I tried to connect the dots back, I was thinking that when we take such breaks, and being rastas and in this material world, we are kind of sometimes forced to do that also. We compromise maybe on my sadhana. I at least was doing that. And that is the time when actually Maya strikes. Maya is, let's not forget one thing, that we have been in Maya's arms for so many millions of lifetimes. And you just think about it, if you are used to doing something, if you're used to eating, let's say, 3 meals a day, every day, and then suddenly somebody takes away 2 meals and says that survive on 1 meal, of course you are bound to feel hungry during those meals, and you will go and search for food, you will try to find it, and you will grab it, you will take it, and you will want it. And that is also a situation of Maya in a way, and us also. While so Maya on one side, the moment she gets an opportunity, she enters. And this is where it's so important that we keep our sadhana, our spiritual practice going strong, because we should not allow Maya to enter. We should not allow those doors, and uh, I often, we go out, I go out with my family, we have lunch, but try to ensure that, places, vegetarian, sattvic food and all that, but we go out. And we are not following that rule to the 100% tea, wherein I'm only eating prasadam, which is cooked at home, for example. And similarly, I said, going on vacations. But again, these are things that we'll have to tighten up. And to me, starting with this 5th canto in the new year was a great opportunity for me to reflect, but also to tighten up the screws a bit, so that, these get relaxed over a period of time. When we get into Krishna consciousness, at least when I look at myself, when I started off, that enthusiasm was really, it reached a real peak. But then, now 3 years into the journey, somewhere I felt that, something was maybe dipping a bit. And this is where we need to be attentive. We need to be conscious about what we are doing. We need to be, that self-awareness has to be there. And we need to keep pulling ourselves back. And this is also my humble prayer to all of you, that let's utilize this year in the best possible way, keeping Krishna at the center of all our actions through the year, so that we don't drop in our the level of devotional service, but we only keep growing. The good news, of course, is that, we might drop a bit, but the moment you come back, you will start from where you left off. That is the good news. So that is the solace that we have. But in any case, we need to keep striving to keep going higher and higher. Now I'll start off with the 5th canto, chapter 1. We will read through the shlokas and the purports. Please let me know if you are able to see my screen. So we'll go through the first 19 verses of the chapter. Tomorrow, Prasad Prabhu will take us through the rest of the chapter. So this particular canto is dealing with, as I said, with Maharaj Priyavrata. And the story, we have already read the up to 4 cantos, and we have seen that how Devahuti, it started with Devahuti, the lineage of Swayambhu Manu was explained, the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya Muni, all the way up to the Prachetas. And then in the end, we see that, now as we begin the 5th canto, Parikshit Maharaj is, of course, he has heard of the reference of Priyavrata in the 4th canto, last chapters. And he's now curious. How can such a person actually come back to material life? So somebody who has already renounced material life, how can he come back to material life? So that's his dilemma. That's not possible according to him. And this is what he asks this question. In astonishment, he questions Sukadev Goswami about this. And then Sukadev Goswami basically narrates to him and tells him, that, why this has happened and what is happening. And then the story goes around. Basically, tomorrow Prasad Prabhu will cover in terms of how Maharaj Priyavata will then rule and govern. He'll come back to material life. However, he'll still remain Krishna conscious. But then he again relinquishes and he goes back, which is again something which is surprising, because when you are so entrenched in material life, it is also very difficult for us to go out and get into that renounced order once again. But he does it in a very seamless way. And these are all learnings for all of us, actually, in terms of how we should lead our lives in when we are living our material lives over here. How do we lead a Krishna conscious life and try to make our materialistic lives as spiritual as they can be, so that when the time comes for us to transition also, it will be a much more smoother transition. So we'll start with the first sloka. Some of the slokas are prose, so we won't go through the narration of the slokas. We'll just go through the translations and the purports. But let's start with text 1. Rajovacha Priyavrato Bhagavata Atma Ramagatam Mune Grihe Ramatayan Mulaha Karma Bandha Parabhavaha. Translation by His Holiness A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Anybody wants to read the translation? Please go ahead. Otherwise, I will just pause for a few seconds and I will read the translation.
Hare Krishna, I'll read Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
King Parikshit inquired from Sukadev Goswami, O great sage, why did King Priyavrata, who was a great self-realized devotee of the Lord, remain in household life, which is the root cause of the bondage of karma, protective activities, and which defeats the mission of human life?
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, can you read the purport also? Or the first paragraph of the purport?
Yeah,
please?
yeah, okay, Prabhu. In the 4th canto, Srila Sukadev Goswami explains that Narada Muni perfectly instructed King Priyavrata about the mission of human life. The mission of human life is to realize one's self and then gradually to go back home, back to Godhead. Since Narada Muni instructed the king fully on this subject, why did he again enter household life, which is the main cause of material bondage? Maharaj Parikshit was greatly astonished that King Priyavrata remained in household life, especially since he was not only a self-realized soul, but also a first-class devotee of the Lord. A devotee actually has no attraction for household life, but surprisingly, King Priyavrata enjoyed household life very much. One may argue, why is it wrong to enjoy household life? The reply is that in household life, one becomes bound by the result of rotative activities. The essence of household life is sense enjoyment, and as long as one engrosses his mind in working hard for the sense enjoyment, one becomes bound by the reactions of the fruited activities. This ignorance of self-realization is the greatest defeat in human life. The human form of life is especially meant for getting out of the bondage of fruitive activities But as long as one is forgetful of his life's mission and acts like an ordinary animal, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, he must continue his conditional life of material existence. Such a life is called Swarupa Vismriti, for forgetfulness of one's real constitutional position. Therefore, in Vedic civilization, one is trained in the very beginning of the life as brahmachari. A brahmachari must execute austerities and refrain from sex indulgence. Therefore, if one is completely trained in the principles of brahmacharya, he generally does not enter household life. He is then called Naishtika Brahmachari, which indicates total celibacy. King Parikshit was thus astonished that the great king Priyavrata, although trained in the principles of Naishtika Brahmacharya, entered household life.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So the astonishment is there for Parikshit Maharaj, and essentially, he was preached. Parikshit is Priyavrata was preached by the original DYS preacher. So, and that is Narada Muni. And he has now, from there, he has progressed. So his surprise is that he was self-realized. He calls him Bhagavata Atma Ramaha. And he says, Prabhupada says, this is a very significant word in the verse, because this means a great devotee who is satisfied in satisfying the self-satisfied Lord. How can such a person enjoy household life? And and he goes on to say that, household life is the root cause of bondage of karma. That is Yanmulaha Karma Bandhanaha. And it defeats the mission of human life, Parabhava. So here, surprise is being expressed by Parikshit Maharaj in this first verse. We'll see that also going on in the second verse when we read text 2. Nanunam Mukta Sanganam Tadrishanam Dvijarshabha Griheshvabhineshveshoyam Pumsam Bhavitum Arhati. Translation: devotees are certainly liberated persons. Therefore, O greatest of the Brahmanas, they cannot possibly be absorbed in family affairs. Hare Krishna. Can someone read the purport?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, shall I read?
Yes, Mataji, please.
In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is said that by executing devotional service to the Lord, one can understand the transcendental position of the living being and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be understood by any means except Bhakti. The Lord confirms this in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.14.21, Bhaktyam Ekaya Graheya. Only by executing devotional service can one appreciate me. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita 18.55, Lord Krishna says, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Simply by discharging devotional service, one can understand me. Thus, for a bhakta to become attached to family affairs is impossible. Since a bhakta and his associates are liberated, everyone is searching after ananda or bliss. But in the material world, there can never be any bliss. It is only possible in devotional service. Attachment for family affairs and devotional service are incompatible. Therefore, Maharaja Parikshit was somewhat surprised to hear that Maharaja Priyavrata was simultaneously attached to devotional service and to family life. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So Parikshit Maharaj is surprised that someone like Priyavrata, who's a Mukta Sangha, devotee like him, who's free from all sorts of material attachments, is thinking about family affairs. How is that possible? Here I just want to leave again a short reflection and what a recollection from this video that I saw of Anandaram Prabhu, wherein he spoke about this importance of sadhana for us from our perspective. Why is sadhana so important? Right? I am not at this level, but it's so important for us to stay away from this impact of Maya. Right. While we will come to more details about why Maharaj Priyavata is thinking about getting back into household life, but for us, from our perspective in our sadhana, why chanting is also so very, very important. Anandaram Prabhu specifically mentioned that he said that according to what Prabhupada said, 99% of our sadhana is chanting, and chanting attentively. That is so important. So when we are chanting, are we making an effort to get up early in the morning during that Brahma Muhurtam, finishing our 16 rounds of chanting in one shot, not postponing, right? And I think this is something that we need to make an effort towards, and we need to make it a habit also. Because when that happens, I think we have all experienced that the days when we do that 16 rounds in one shot in that Brahma Muhurtam period, our days end up being more blissful, much more organized, and we see that we are much more focused there. And this is a habit that we need to cultivate so that Maya stops attacking us. And in the situation of Priyavata Maharaj, it's not the question of Maya attacking him. We'll just come to those details of why this is happening. But in our situation, at least in my situation, whenever we see that we are falling into that material quagmire, I think that time Maya is attacking us, and it's happening because our sadhana, my sadhana has not been very strong. And this is our defense against Maya entering into our lives. We'll continue reading. So in text 3, we'll see now what's happening here. Mahatam khalu viprashe uttama shloka padayoho chaya nirvita chittanam na kutumbe spriha matihi. Translation: elevated Mahatmas who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are fully satiated by the shade of the lotus feet. Their consciousness cannot possibly become attached to family members. So, here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is referring to Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He has sung Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala Ye Chhayaya Jagat Judaya. He describes the shade of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda as being so nice and cooling that all materialists who are always in the blazing fire of material activities may come under the shade of his lotus feet and be fully relieved and satiated. The distinction between family life and spiritual life can be experienced by any person who has undergone the tribulations of living with a family. One who comes under the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord never becomes attracted by the activities of family life. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 2.59, Param Drishtve Nivartate, one gives up lower engagements when he experiences a higher taste. Thus, one becomes detached from family life as soon as he comes under the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Are we trying to come under the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord? Anyone? If you were to rank your effort on a scale of 1 to 10, where are we on that in terms of effort? Are we trying? Are we making that effort? We know that there are two things that are needed. One is effort, and the other is Krishna's mercy. But Krishna's mercy comes when there is effort. Are we making that effort to come, not get detached, but rather get attached more and more to Krishna? From my perspective, it is limited to those few hours in the morning. And then again, I get back immediately into this whole material life again, every day again. I'm trying my little bit, but again, it just I keep telling this, telling this whenever I'm taking a class also, I'm saying that, this 90 minutes or so, 100 minutes is my opportunity to get again into Krishna consciousness. But again, we step back. And again, Prabhupada is nicely saying that, he's telling us the solution. He's saying, one becomes detached from family life as soon as he comes under the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Text 4. So here Priyavrata is continuing. He's saying, He's saying, sorry, Parikshit Maharaj is continuing, he's saying, Samshayo yam mahan brahman Dara sutadishu saktasya yat siddhir abhut Krishne cha matir achyuta. Translation. The king continued, O great Brahmana, this is my great doubt. How was it possible for a person like King Priyavrata, who was so attached to wife, children, and home, to achieve the topmost infallible perfection in Krishna consciousness? So here again, the bewilderment of Parikshit Maharaj is continuing, and he's asking, he's wondering, in the purport, if you read, he says, King Parikshit wondered how a person so attached to wife, children, and home could have become so perfectly Krishna conscious. Prahlad Maharaj has said, Matirna Krishne Parata Swato Va Mitho Padyate Padyeta Griha Vratana. A Griha Vrata, one who has taken a vow to execute family duties, has no chance to become Krishna consciousness. So please read this. A Grihavrata, one who has taken a vow to execute family duties, has no chance to become Krishna conscious. This is because most of the Grihavratas are guided by sense gratification and therefore gradually glide down to the darkest regions of material existence. Adanta Gobhir Vishatam Tamisram. How can they possibly become perfect in Krishna consciousness? Maharaj Parikshit asked Sukadeva Goswami to resolve this great doubt. Any thoughts on this, Prabhujis and Matajis, that a Grihavrata, one who has taken a vow to execute family duties, has no chance to become Krishna conscious? Does that mean it's doomsday for us? Anyone? Prahlad Maharaj is saying this.
Probably it is, if I attempt it. So I think it is more to do with the attachment to the family life. And that's why it's saying why vow to execute family, which means that is in all. So this is what I need to do, and this is my life is there, and I get so attached to that becomes all in all.
Absolutely. Sunil Prabhu, you touched upon a beautiful point, which is attachment. And I was listening to this on the fifth verse. Actually, Sukadeva Goswami will now answer that in the next verse. I was listening to Radhesham Prabhu's lecture on the fifth verse, and he talks about responsibility and attachment. And he says, if they have to be, responsibility and attachment cannot go together. If you get attached to your responsibility, then that is the downward slide for us. So as long as we are able to own that responsibility, but at the same time also remain detached, it's easier said than done, I think. And this is what he said, is that is where we are able to bring Krishna into the picture, and we are able to continue our spiritual progress. We are not getting stuck in our material life then. So this was a very important point that I just made a note of, and I thought I'd share it. But thanks again, you brought it up very nicely. It's the attachment that becomes the reason for that gradual glide down towards the darkest regions of material existence. Even in our professional careers, we get attached to positions. We might be in positions of authority or positions of high responsibility, right? And we start thinking that without us, that role or that particular organization team will not function without my leadership. And we are thinking that I am providing that leadership, when in fact we are doing nothing. It's all being done by Krishna. It's being orchestrated by Krishna. But we are under that illusion that we are thinking that we are executing and we are doing it. All this under the influence of Maya. Thank you, Sunil Prabhu. Text 5. We'll directly read the translation. This is in prose, so I'll request one of the devotees, if you can read the translation, please, of text 5.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, please proceed. Please go ahead.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, what you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is praised in eloquent transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never uh,
Gives up.
gives up the exalted position he has acquired. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we'll read the purport. Mataji, if you can read the first two paragraphs.
Yes, Prabhuji. Sure, Prabhuji. Sri Sukadeva Goswami accepted both the king's propositions that a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. Although accepting both these statements, Sukadeva Goswami qualified them by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may sometimes be influenced by impediments, but he still does not give up his exalted devotional position.
Yes, Mataji.
According to
We'll just take a pause here, Mataji. So,
okay,
so
sure.
here in the report, Srila Prabhupada is saying that, Sukadev Goswami qualified this statement by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of Supreme Personality God may sometimes be influenced by impediments. So these impediments are basically obstacles to bhakti, but he still does not give up his exalted devotion position. Anybody on, so there are two kinds of impediments. Anybody can share, what are those two impediments? In our spiritual progress, there could be two impediments. So in the purport only further on, actually, Mataji, you can continue reading, but essentially there are two impediments. One is offending a Vaishnava, and the other one is it's the desire of the Lord. So these two events can actually stall our progress for a particular reason. So one is Vaishnava Prad and the other one is stalling of the Lord's desire. Mataji, you can continue reading.
Yes, Prabhuji. According to Sri Viswanath Chakravarti Thakura, there are two kinds of impediments to devotional service. The first is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. This is called Vaishnava Aparadha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnava Aparadha, which he described as the mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, it destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aparadha is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being. Thus, Vaishnava Aparadha is one kind of impediment to devotional service. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees desires to impede one's devotional service. For example,
Mataji. So yes, Mataji, this is enough.
yes.
So there are two things that Prabhupada is saying out here. One is Vaishnava Prad, and the other one is sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees desire to impede one's devotional service. So there are examples for this, So if you are looking at Vaishnava Prad, can anyone share those examples that are there for Vaishnava Prad? Any examples come to mind?
Cursing of Parishit Maharaj.
Sorry.
Cursing of Parishit Maharaj by Shringi.
Yes. But there immediately Parikshit Maharaj also is seeking forgiveness. I think that's a very important point, Santosh Prabhu, Aditya Prabhu. Thank you for sharing that. The other example is also we have is, Dvivida, that is in the 10th canto. I've not read that, but I'm just reading this from the Subodhini. And there, if you actually commit a Vaishnava aparadh, so there are two routes to that salvation, to get rid of that. One is it can be pacified by undergoing appropriate difficulties over a very long period of time. And that example is given of Dvivida in the 10th canto, 67th chapter. And then the other one example is also where it can be quickly removed by the mercy of a Vaishnava. Anyone knows about the example wherein this can be quickly removed by the mercy of a Vaishnava? It is in the 5th canto, in fact. We'll be reading about this, where we'll read the story of Raghuna and Jadabharata. So, in that particular instance, we see that, Raghuna thinks that he's a palanquin, I need a palanquin carrier, and here there's a madman. This person will help me, he needs to help me. And he starts ordering him and, talking to him in a way which is quite disrespectful. And then he realizes at that moment itself that this person is not an ordinary person, and it happens by the grace of the devotee over there, who actually speaks something very philosophical. And Raghuna realizes that he has committed a very, very grave mistake, and he immediately falls down and does a Dandavat Pranam and begs for his mercy and he gets it. So that is the way to get rid of that kind of Vaishnava aparadh, so that you can continue in your spiritual progress. Now, there are other examples also wherein it's the Lord's desire that, a devotee has to do something in particular. And for this also we have got examples, in the purport itself, we have the examples of Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, who were formerly Jaya and Vijaya. Now, Jaya and Vijaya were the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. Now, why did they come down? Why did they have to take an Asuric life? They also had an option to be Bhaktas for a longer period of time, but they chose to be an Asur, took that 3 lifetimes of Asuric life. Why? Hare Krishna. Anyone who wants to?
Sorry.
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Sorry.
Yes, Mataji. Please continue. Swapna Mataji.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Or Usha Mataji, please continue. You are unmuted.
Oh, yes, Prabhuji. For example, Hiranyakashipu and
Mataji, I'm
Hiranyaksha.
asking you why did Jaya and Vijaya decide to accept that Asuric demoniac lives? What was the reason for that?
Because they wanted the only like 3 births, Prabhuji. Like instead of living long, how to express?
So I was listening to Gauranga Darshan Prabhu's lecture on this.
Like Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu and 2 more these things. Like Asuras, instead of living for more and more births, taking more and more births, Prabhuji.
So Gauranga Darshan Prabhu explained it as it was the desire of the Lord. It was not that they wanted to come back fast.
Okay.
But it was a desire of the Lord, and for them their ultimate goal was only to satisfy the Lord. The Lord had a desire to fight. And whom could he fight with? He could only fight with devotees. And Vaikuntha is not the place where he can fight with devotees. So he had to come down to fight with devotees. In Vaikuntha, you cannot fight. And for that, he desired. And the devotee satisfied that desire. So he explained it that was the reason why they chose that 3 demoniac lives instead of longer time lives living as bhaktas. They wanted that because to satisfy the Lord's desire.
Okay.
So the Lord had the desire. In fact, if you see, he keeps and he has many of these fights when he comes. Krishna has these fights, and finally his his desire gets satiated only when he fights Jambavan for 28 days, and then after that, Jambavan realizes that Jambavan is fighting his Lord Rama. Till then, the Lord does not allow him to even know that, because his desires to be fulfilled. So it is the desire of the Lord, and to fulfill the desire of the Lord, the devotees actually choose to become enemies of the Lord also. So Prabhupada says, thus the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment, but in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. So it's just a matter of time. Once that particular duty is fulfilled, they come back. So in Priyavrata's case, following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhuva and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life. That is the reason why Priyavrata accepted, which is to fulfill the desire of the Lord. So later on, when we will see, Brahma will come and we will talk to Priyavrata. He will mention that Priyavrata is fulfilling the Lord's desire, and nobody can avoid that. If it's the Lord's desire that something has to happen, no yogi, whether he is the most advanced yogi or whoever he is, will not be able to avoid that. We have to toe the line. And he gives this example of the bull, which is governed by that rope, which is the rope goes through the nose, and the person who is steering the bullock cart will be guiding the bull based on that. We are just like that bull, and we have to behave there like that. There's no way for us out. He says Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstance. Because the material world is full of obstructions to advancement in Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments. Yet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declares in Bhagavad Gita 9.31, Kaunteya pratijanahi na me bhakta pranashyati. Once one has taken the shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. That is the good news for all of us. We have taken that first step. Even we have chanted once in our life, once we have taken Krishna's name, we have come under some kind of shelter, right? We will not be lost. And no matter how much we slip, we'll come back to that same place. But let's ensure that we don't slip and fall, because we don't know how much time we are going to be spending in that fallen state. We'll continue reading this purport. Actually, it's a very good purport, so I will read it in full. In this verse, the word Shivatamam is very significant. Shivatamam means most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that a devotee cannot be lost under any circumstance. This is described in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. Partha naiveha namutra vinashas tasya vidyate. My dear Arjuna, for a devotee, there is no question of being lost either in this life or in the next. Bhagavad Gita 6.40. In Bhagavad Gita 6.43, the Lord clearly explains how this is so. Tatratam buddhi samyogam labate paurva dehikam yatate cha tato bhuyah samsiddho kuru nandana. By the order of the Lord, a perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world like an ordinary human being. Because of his previous practice, such a perfect devotee naturally becomes attached to devotional service, apparently without cause. Despite all kinds of impediments due to the surrounding circumstances, he automatically preserves in devotional service and gradually advances until he once again becomes perfect. Bilawangul Thakur had been an advanced devotee in his previous life, but in his next life, he became greatly fallen and was attached to a prostitute. Suddenly, however, his entire behavior was changed by the words of the same very prostitute who had so much attracted him, and he became a great devotee. In the lives of exalted devotees, there are many such instances, proving that once one has taken the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhaktah pranashyati. So we'll take the example of Bharata. Now, Bharata saw this deer and developed some affection for him, but in the next life, he became a deer. Now, what do you think? The question to you is that who was more advanced? Was Bharata more advanced, in a more advanced state, or was the deer in a more advanced state? Anyone? Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, question is Bharata or the deer?
Yeah. Who was in a more advanced state?
Probably the deer.
Yes, you're right, Sunil Prabhu. So this again, Gauranga Darshan Prabhu only said this. He said that, if you look at it, first of all, it's the Lord's desire. And here the Lord is desiring that, an example has to be set. So Bharata, he takes up the Lord's desire, and he's now accepted the body of a deer. But we don't see deers, or for that matter, even human beings, who remember their past lives, who remember the Lord so much, right? We are even human beings are not blessed. This deer, however, was blessed with that kind of a life wherein the deer was in a fully conscious state. Even though the Bharata got the body of a deer and he accepted it, he was still in a fully Krishna conscious state. He renounced everything, he stayed away through that life, and then advanced to a much more advanced position of Jadabharata in his next life. So, as Prabhupada is saying, once one has taken the shelter of the lotus feet of God, he cannot be lost. He'll only advance. The fact is, however, that one becomes a devotee when he is completely freed from all reactions to sinful life. As Krishna states in 7.28 of Bhagavad Gita, Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nairmukta bhajante mam dridha vrata. Persons who have acted piously in previous life and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. On the other hand, as Prahlad Maharaj said, Matirna Krishne Parata Svatova Mitho Vipadyate Griha Vratana. We read this verse earlier also. A person who is too attached to materialistic family life, home, family, wife, children, and so on, cannot develop Krishna consciousness. And this is what Sunil Prabhu had mentioned also. The attachment is the culprit. Taking on responsibility is not wrong. As long as we are in this material world, we have accepted the body, we'll have responsibilities and we'll have to fulfill those responsibilities, be it responsibilities as a grihastha, or later on, we are having responsibilities in our offices, in our organizations and all that. Attachment will become the culprit. The moment you get attached to it, you're going to get attached to results. And then that is the cycle that starts then. They don't happen. It leads to anger and all that. And then illusion and delusion finally. So let's not be attached. Let's try to do whatever we are doing in a detached way, keeping Krishna at the center. So these apparent contradictions are resolved in the life of a devotee by the grace of the Supreme Lord, and therefore a devotee is never bereft of his position on the path of liberation, which is described in the verse as Shivatamam Padavim. We'll read the next translation, text number 6. From here, we'll move a little bit more faster. Anybody wants to read the translation? Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll only read it. Translation for the 6th verse.
Prabhuji, shall I read Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji, please read.
Translation. So Sukadev Goswami continued, my dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he saw the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert in his attention to anything else. The prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing Bhakti Yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus engaging all his senses in the service of Lord. Therefore, although the order of his father could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus, he very conscientiously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling over the world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I have narrated this at the beginning also. This is essentially the story, what happens, the original DYS preacher, Narada Muni, has instructed Priyavrata, right? And he sought the lotus feet of Narada, who was a spiritual master, and that he attained highest perfection. And in between, what happened? So Swayambhuva Manu and then Uttanapada. Uttanapada's descendants up to the Prachetas had ruled the kingdom of the earth. But now there was no king. For their son Daksha in his second birth took to performing austerities. So Swayambhuva Manu, seeing that there is no other alternative, wanted to bring Priyavrata back from the forest and make him the king. Thus Priyavrata and his descendants ruled until the 5th Manvantara. So Prabhuji and Mataji, we are also seeing that here, these great devotees in those yugas, they were able to live across Manvantaras for such long periods of time. And at the beginning of the 6th Manvantara, Daksha gave up his austerities and became king. In this particular verse also, what we are seeing is that Priyavrata, he is not able to accept his father's order. At the same time, he's not rejecting it also. So he's not rejecting it, but at the same time, he's very reluctant. He's not accepting it. And he has this question in mind. He's saying, I'm not convinced. It will divert me from my devotional service if I accept this responsibility of ruling over this world. So please help me. And this is where now the stage gets set for Brahma to come. So Brahma will now come and he will address Priyavrata. We will read now text 7. Anyone can read text 7, translation, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I'll read.
Hare Krishna Mataji, yes, please.
Translation. Sri Sukadev Goswami continued, the first created being and most powerful demigod in this universe is Lord Brahma, who is always responsible for developing universal affairs. Born directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he dedicates his activities to the welfare of the entire universe, for he knows the purpose of the universal creation. This supremely powerful Lord Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the highest planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So now
Should I read it?
we can read from the second paragraph, Mataji, Vedic knowledge.
Okay. Vedic knowledge is divided into two parts, Pravritti Marga and Nivritti Marga. Nivritti Marga is the path of negating sense enjoyment, and Pravritti Marga is the path by which the living entities are given a chance to enjoy and at the same time are directed in such a way that they can go back home, back to Godhead. Because ruling over this universe is a great responsibility, Brahma must force many Manus in different ages to take charge of universal affairs. Under each Manu, there are different kings who also execute the purpose of the Lord Brahma. It is understood from previous explanations that the father of Dhruva Maharaj, King Uttanapada, ruled over the universe because his elder brother Priyavrata practiced austerities from the beginning of his life. Thus,
Yes, Mataji, this is then the story is there, and then we can go to the next paragraph, Mataji.
Okay. A significant word in this verse is Sva Bhavanat, indicating that Lord Brahma descended from his own abode. Every demigod has his own abode. Indra, the king of demigods, has his own abode, as do Chandra, the lord of the moon planet, and Surya, the predominating deity of the sun planet. There are many millions of demigods, and the stars and planets are their respective homes. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. Those who worship the demigods go to their different planetary systems. Lord Brahma's abode, the highest planetary system, is Satyaloka or sometimes Brahmaloka. Brahmaloka usually refers to the spiritual world. The abode of Lord Brahma is Satyaloka. But because Lord Brahma resides there, it is also sometimes called Brahmaloka.
So here again,
Hare
Prabhupada is not losing that effort to emphasize on the point that who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who are the demigods. So everybody has a role, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is only one, that is Krishna. So we'll continue reading into text 8 now and see what happens. Okay, now Brahma has now come. Brahma is Priyavrata's grandfather. It's very interesting that here we'll have 4 Mahajans actually who have descended to come and convince Priyavrata that look here, you need to now take up family and household life. We'll read the translation to text 8 also. Hare Krishna, anyone wants to read the translation and the purport, please?
If nobody is reading, shall I read?
Yes, Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna. As Lord Brahma descended on his carrier, the great swan, all the residents of the planets named Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Sadhyaloka, and Charanaloka, as well as great sages and demigods flying in their different airplanes, assembled within the canopy of the sky to receive Lord Brahma and worship him. As he received respect and adoration from the residents of the various planets, Lord Brahma appeared just like the full moon surrounded by illuminating stars. Lord Brahma's great swan then arrived at the border of Gandhamadana hill and approached Prince Priyavrata, who was sitting there. Purport. Shall I read? Shall I continue?
Yes,
Purport.
Mataji, please continue.
It appears from this description that there is regular interplanetary travel between the planets of the demigods. Another significant point is that there is a planet covered mostly by great mountains, one of which is Gandhamadana Hill. 3 great personalities, Priyavrata, Narada, and Swayambhuva Manu, were sitting on this hill. According to Brahma Samhita, each universe is filled with different planetary systems, and every system has a unique opulence. For example, on Siddhaloka, all the residents are very advanced in the powers of mystic yoga. They can fly from one planet to another without airplanes or other flying machines. Similarly, the residents of Gandharvaloka are expert in musical science, and those on Sadhyaloka are all great science. The interplanetary system undoubtedly exists, and residents of different planets may go from one to another. On this earth, however, we have not invented any machine that can go directly from one planet to another, although an unsuccessful attempt has been made to go directly to the moon. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, yeah. So, again, we'll move now to text 9 now. We'll see what Lord Brahma, now he's going to be received now. We'll read a little bit about the reception that Lord Brahma gets. Translation. Lord Brahma, the father of Narada Muni, is the supreme person within this universe. As soon as Narada saw the great swan, he could understand that Lord Brahma has arrived. Therefore, he immediately stood up, along with Swayambhuva Manu and his son Priyavrata, whom Narada was instructing. Then they folded their hands and began to worship Lord Brahma with great respect. Purport. As stated in the previous verse, Lord Brahma was accompanied by other demigods by his specific carrier and was the great swan. Therefore, as soon as Narada Muni saw the swan, he could understand that his father, Lord Brahma, who is also known as Hiranyagarbha, was arriving. Thus, he immediately stood up with Swayambhuva Manu and his son Priyavrata to receive Lord Brahma and offer him respect. Text 10. Somebody wants to read text 10, please? Now, how Brahma responds to the situation is what we will see. Hare Krishna. I'll only read the translation. My dear King Parikshit, because Lord Brahma had finally descended from Satyaloka to Bhuloka, Narada Muni, Prince Priyavrata, and Swayambhuva Manu came forward to offer him objects of worship and to praise him in highly qualified language according to Vedic etiquette. At that time, Lord Brahma, the original person of this universe, felt compassion for Priyavrata and looking upon him with a smiling face, spoke to him as follows. Now, what is the significance of Brahma's compassion and Brahmaji's smile? Anyone? Anyone wants to try that? What is the significance of Brahmaji's compassion and Brahmaji's smile? So Brahma's compassion is because he has interrupted Priyavrata's Bhakti Jnana and Vairagya. So if you read in the verse, you have Bhakti Jnana Vairagya has been interrupted. So and that's the reason why uh, uh, Brahmaji is showing compassion to Priyavrata. And why is he smiling? And Gauranga Prabhu in his Subodhini says, to refuse the kingdom is your stubbornness. I will make you rule this kingdom. That is my stubbornness. I will see whose stubbornness will prevail. And that's why Prabhupada in his purport says, Priyavrata was the grandson of Lord Brahma, and as a joking competition sometimes takes place between grandson and grandfather, in this case also Priyavrata was determined to remain in meditation, whereas Brahma was determined that he ruled the universe. Thus, Lord Brahma's affectionate smile and glance meant, my dear Priyavrata, you have decided to accept household life. I have decided to convince you that you must accept it. Actually, Brahma had come to praise Priyavrata for his high standard of renunciation and austerity, penance and devotion, so that he would not be deviated from devotional service, even though he would accept household life. So it's interesting here. Now, Brahmaji has already been in this situation before, wherein he has asked some of his children also to accept household life, and they refused. So if you have seen the situation with the four Kumaras, so this is another situation. Here you have Maharaj Priyavrata, and we'll see in the next verse. And in verse 19, actually, he will accept the household life. But in the earlier case, we saw the four Kumaras, they actually rejected household life, right? So who is right in this situation? What Maharaj Priyavrata later does, we will see in this chapter, or the four Kumaras? Who is in the right position? Anybody? Any thoughts?
Both are right, Prabhu.
Why, Prabhu? Any reflections? Any thoughts? Why?
Maharaj Priyavrata, there the Lord is asking him to do certain things and asking him to be in the Grihastha life. So that's why he's right to come into the Grihastha life, because he's following the orders. And in the Kumaras, though they are not following the orders of Brahma, so to say, but they are following the higher dharma, which is following the devotional path.
Yes, it is the intention, Prabhu, and you have touched upon it very nicely. Wherein in both the situations, the intention was to satisfy Krishna, and here also we'll see from verse 11 to 19, where Brahma will give the reasons for convincing Priyavrata to accept household life. And in the Kumara's case also, we saw that they declined, but their goal was to remain celibate and devote their entire lives to satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In our lives also, we sometimes face this challenge, of giving responsibility to someone, especially in the work life. Now, can we force someone to take up a responsibility? Right? And sometimes we do that mistake, which is forcing somebody to take up a responsibility, and that person might not be able to fulfill that responsibility to the full. So it's also the person's innate capability, and that is also it's important here. And in this case, when Babaji will also outline that Priyavrata is a pure devotee, and there is no reason why, even if he goes back into that household life, he is going to get entrapped there. He will be able to come back to the spiritual order again. We'll continue reading. Try to wrap up in the next 20 minutes, 25 minutes, Patajis and Prabhujis. Please be patient. Thank you. Text 11. Sri Bhagavan Vacha निबोधता तेदमृतं ब्रवीमि मा शूयितुं देवम् अरस्य अप्रमेयम् वयं भवस्ते तत एष महर्षिर्वहाम सर्वे विवशा यस्य दिष्टम्. Translation: Lord Brahma, the supreme person within this universe, said, "My dear Priyavrata, kindly hear attentively what I shall say to you. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord, who is beyond our experimental measurements. All of us, including Lord Shiva, your father, and the great sage Maharishi Narada, must carry out the supreme order of the Supreme. We cannot deviate from his order." Can someone read the purport, please? It's an important purport. Hare Krishna. Okay. Purport.
You can read.
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Purport. Of the 12 great authorities in devotional service, 4, Lord Brahma himself, his son Narada, Swayambhu Manu, and Lord Shiva were present before Priyavrata. They were accompanied by many other authoritative sages. Brahma first wanted to impress upon Priyavrata that although these great personalities are all authorities, they cannot possibly disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described in this verse as Deva, which means always glorious. The power, glory, and potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never be diminished. In the Ishopanishad, the Lord is described as Apapa Vidha, which indicates that he is never affected by anything materially considered sinful. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam describes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as being so powerful that nothing we might consider abominable can affect him. An example sometimes given to explain the position of Supreme Lord is that of the sun, which evaporates urine from the earth but is never affected by the contamination. The Supreme Lord can never be accused of doing anything wrong. When Lord Brahma went to induce Priyavrata to accept the responsibility for ruling the universe, he did not go whimsically. He was following the dictations of the Supreme Lord. Indeed, Brahma and other genuine authorities never do anything without the permission. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. The Lord dictated the Vedic knowledge to Brahma through his heart. The more a living entity is purified by devotional service, the more he comes in direct contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Shloka Prabhu, you want me to read the shloka? Okay.
Yes,
To
I
those
will
who
read.
are
You can read, Prabhu. You can read also.
तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतां प्रीतिपूर्वकं ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन माम् उपयान्ति ते. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 10. Lord Brahma, therefore, had not come to Priyavrata by his own whims. Rather, it is understood that he had been ordered to persuade Priyavrata by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities cannot be understood by material senses, and who is therefore described herein as Aprameya. Thus, Lord Brahma first advised Priyavrata to hear his words with attention and without envy. Why one is to perform certain acts despite his desire to do something else is indicated herein. One cannot disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord, even if one is as powerful as Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, Manu, or great sage Narada. All these authorities are certainly very powerful, but they do not have the power to disobey the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since Lord Brahma had come to Priyavrata in accordance with the orders of the Supreme Lord, he first wanted to dispel any suspicions that he might be acting as Priyavrata's enemy. Lord Brahma was following the orders of the Supreme Lord, and therefore it would be worthwhile for Priyavrata to accept Lord Brahma's order as the Lord desired. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. It's a very good purport, very important purport, where we need to constantly keep reflecting and remembering that in our lives also, sometimes things happen that sometimes we don't want to do, and sometimes, which are not according to our wishes also, but they are happening for a reason, and we need to embrace that. And this is about also not being attached, because sometimes we get attached to the good things of life, and then we think that it makes us happy. When something negative happens or something that we don't want, it becomes uh, unhappiness, right? And we are not able to stay neutral. But it's important to remember that whatever is happening, it's all being controlled by the Lord, and it's being done for a reason. And in this case, we are seeing that it was not Lord Brahma. It was Lord Brahma was fulfilling the Lord's desire. And since he is at a much more advanced stage, of course, he was able to hear to him attentively. As Papa says, he heard him, it was understood by Brahma because Brahma heard these instructions attentively. The Lord's order. Text 12. न तस्य कश्चित् तपसा विद्यया वा न योगवीर्येण मनीषय वा निवार्थ धर्मै परतः स्वतो वा कृतं विहन्तुं तनुभृद् विभूयात्. Translation: one cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities, an exalted Vedic education, or the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities. Nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being, from Brahma down to the ant. So I'm not going through the purport, but essentially over here, that's specified out here in the translation itself, that there is no way we can avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No matter what kind of austerities you perform, or any exalted Vedic education, power of mystic yoga, your physical prowess, or your intellectual activities, if there is something that the God wants to, desires, and it has to happen, it will happen. It has to be obeyed. There is no way you can avoid it. Nor can one use the power of his religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being, from Brahma down to an ant. It's a dead end. Text 13. Bhavaya nashaya cha karma kartum shokaya mohaya sada bhayaya sukhaya dukkhaya cha deha yogam avyaktadishtam janatanga dhatte. Translation: My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress. Purport: every living entity who has come to this material world has come here for material enjoyment. But according to his own karma, activities, he must accept a certain type of body given to him by material nature under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.27, Prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha. Everything is done by Prakriti, material nature, under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Modern scientists do not know why there are varieties of bodies of 8.4 million forms. The fact is that all these bodies are ordained for the living entities by the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the living entity's desires. He gives the living entities freedom to act as they like, but on the other hand, they must accept a body according to the reactions of their activities. Thus, there are different types of bodies. Some living entities have short durations of life, whereas others live for fantastic durations. Every one of them, however, from Brahma down to the ant, acts according to the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is sitting in everyone's heart, as confirmed in 15.15 of Bhagavad Gita. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. It is not a fact, however, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives direction to certain living entities in one way and other living entities in another way. The truth is that every entity has a certain desire, and the Supreme Lord gives him a chance to fulfill it. The best course, therefore, is to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and act according to his desire. One who does so is liberated. So, beautiful short purport, and it's actually quite powerful when you reflect on this. When you see it, right, the first part is, of course, is that, we are, of course, under this false illusion that we are the doers, when in fact we are not. Everything is being done by Prakriti, material nature, under the direction of the Supreme Lord. And therefore, when we think that we are the doers, we also suffer the reactions, and we keep taking birth after birth in those 8.4 million forms. And it's not a chance that by chance that we have become taken human forms. It is basically we are very fortunate to have got this body where we have an intellect. We are able to reflect and discriminate, more importantly. So let us not waste this opportunity of the human life that we have got and ensure that we are using it for the right purpose. Why have we received this human body? Which is to ensure that we serve God and come closer to him. And here in the last part of the purport, Prabhupada says, this is an important thing he says, it is not a fact, however, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives direction to certain living entities in one way and other entities in another way. The truth is that every living entity has a certain desire and the Supreme Lord gives him a chance to fulfill it. So this is the Paramatma that is sitting with us as the super soul. And all he does is he takes note. He does not hold your hand. Paramatma will not hold your hand. Paramatma will take note. So tomorrow, if we decide to do and take an action, Paramatma takes a note of it and says that, okay, Anand, you have taken this action, and therefore, after our lives, he will send the report card to Yamaraja. So today, if we jump off and we die from a building or whatever, right? And then what is the Paramatma trying to stop us? No, he's not going to hold your hand. He's only going to take note and then he'll submit the report card. This is the person's report card. These were all these actions, these fruitive activities that he did. These are the reactions, and therefore the next body is to be given to him. That is decided, and he accepts it and he moves on. However, the best course, Prabhupada says, is therefore to surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now when you surrender to Bhagavan, he will hold your hand. He is not going to let go of you and act according to his desire. One who does so is liberated. So let's not waste time, and let's remember this most important thing, that we have to have the attitude of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and render devotional service unto him. And when we do that, he will hold our hand and he will take us back. Text 14. We have another 15 minutes. I'll read the translations from here till text 19 directly. My dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions to the divisions of Varna Ashrama according to our qualities of work These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of Varnashrama Dharma like bulls obliged to move according to the directions of the driver pulling on ropes knotted to their noses. I had used this analogy earlier. We'll read the purport. In these words, the word Antyam Guna Karma Dami Bihi are very important. We each get a body according to our association with the gunas, the qualities of or modes of material nature, and we act accordingly. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the four orders of the social system, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, are arranged according to guna and karma, the qualities of worth. There is some controversy about this, however, because some say that since one receives a body according to guna and karma of his past life, it is one's birth that determines his social status. Others say, however, that one's birth according to the guna and karma of his past life is not essential consideration, since one can change his guna and karma even in this life. Thus, they say that the four divisions of social order, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, should be arranged according to the guna and karma of this life. This version is confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Narada Muni. While instructing Maharaj Yudhishthir about the symptoms of guna and karma, Narada Muni said that these symptoms must govern the division of society. In other words, if a person born in the family of a Brahmana has the symptoms of a Shudra, he should be designated as a Shudra. Similarly, if a Shudra has Brahmanical qualities, he should be designated a Brahmana. The Varnashrama system is scientific. Therefore, if we accept the divisions of Varna and Ashrama according to the Vedic instructions, our lives will be successful. Human society is thus divided and arranged. It cannot be perfect as stated in the Vishnu Purana. Varnashrama Chara Vata Purushena Paraha Puman Vishnur Aradhyate Pantha Nanyat Tatko Tosha Karanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the four Varnas and Ashramas. So it's a very important line here that he's mentioning, which is that in our Varnas and Ashramas, we have to lead a Krishna conscious centric life. All human society is meant to worship Lord Vishnu. At the present moment, however, human society does not know that this is the ultimate goal to perfection of life. Therefore, instead of worshipping Lord Vishnu, people have been educated to worship matter. According to the direction of modern society, men think they can advance in civilization by manipulating matter to build skyscrapers, big roads, automobiles, and so on. Such civilization must certainly be called materialistic because its people do not know the goal of life. The goal of life is to reach Vishnu, but instead of reaching Vishnu, people are bewildered by external manifestation of the material energy. Therefore, progress in material advancement is blind, and the leaders of such material advancement are also blind. They are leading their followers in the wrong way. It is best, therefore, to accept the injunctions of the Vedas, which are mentioned in the verse as Yad Vachi. In accordance with those injunctions, everyone should find out whether he is a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, and should thus be educated accordingly. Then his life will be successful. Otherwise, all of human society will be confused. If human society is divided scientifically according to Varna and Ashrama, and if the Vedic directions are followed, one's life, regardless of its position, will be successful. It is not that Brahmanas will be elevated to the transcendental platform, but not the Shudras. If the Vedic injunctions are followed, all of them, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, will be elevated to the transcendental platform, and their lives will be successful. The injunction in the Vedas are explicit directions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The example cited in the verse is that the bull tied by the ropes in their nostrils move according to their directions of the driver. Similarly, if we move according to the instructions of the Vedas, the perfect path of our lives will be set. Otherwise, we do not move in that way, but act according to our whimsical ideas. Our lives will be spoiled by confusion and will end in despair. Actually, because people at the present moment are not following the instructions of the Vedas, they are all confused. We must therefore accept this instruction of Lord Brahma to Priyavrata as factual, scientific direction leading to the success of life. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 16.23. Yashastra viddin utsrijya vartate kamatkaratah nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukham na param gatim. If we do not live according to the injunctions of the Shastras, the Vedas, we shall never achieve success in life, to say nothing of happiness or elevation to higher status of living. Text 15. Translation. My dear Priyavrata, according to our association with different modes of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives us our specific bodies and the happiness and distress we achieve. One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see. So I'm not getting into the details of the purport, but more importantly, I think what we need to keep in mind is that we have to be govern our lives in a Krishna conscious way, seek the right association, and then we will have, when we do lead our lives accordingly, then our lives will progress. So we need to hold on to the right ropes, like we are blind men, and we'll have to hold on, clutch the feet of devotees, clutch the association sadhu sangha that we need, and that will guide us in the right direction. There is no other way. Material means one cannot avoid the happiness and distress unique to this particular body. And if we don't do that, we'll keep rotating in that 8.4 million bodily forms and continue to suffer. Text 16. Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma, without misconceptions. However, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. This purport Prabhupada in the beginning he says the difference between a liberated and conditioned soul is that the conditioned soul is under the concept of bodily life, whereas a liberated person knows that he is not the body, but a spirit different from the body. Priyavrata might have thought that although a conditioned soul is forced to act according to the laws of nature, why should he, who was far advanced in spiritual understanding, accept the same kind of bondage and impediments to spiritual advancement? To answer this doubt, Lord Brahma informed him that even those who are liberated do not resent accepting in the present body the results of their past activities. While sleeping, one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens, he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person, one who has completely understood that he is not the body but a spirit soul, disregards past activities performed in ignorance and performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. We continue reading, the three more verses left. Text 17. Even if he goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-wives, the mind and the knowledge-acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied learned man who has conquered his senses. I'll read this purport. This is important for all of us because we are living the life of Grihasthas. And we need to keep in mind that, if we deviate, we will be getting controlled by the knowledge acquiring senses and the mind. So the purport Prabhupada says, Sri Narottam Das Thakura has sung, Griheva Maneta Thake Ha Gauranga Bale Dake. Whether one is situated in the forest or at home, if he is engaged in the devotional service of Lord Chaitanya, he is a liberated person. Here this is also repeated. For one who is not controlled his senses, going to the forest to become a so-called yogi is meaningless. Because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him, he cannot achieve anything, even by giving up household life and staying in the forest. Formerly, many mercantile men from the upcountry India used to go to Bengal, and there is a familiar saying, if you go to Bengal, your fortune will go with you. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses. And since the senses cannot be controlled unless engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, our most important duty is to engage the senses in the devotional service. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. Bhakti means engagement of the purified senses in the service of the Lord. So it is not about detachment, it is about attachment to Krishna and ensuring that all our senses are engaged in the service of the Lord. Herein Lord Brahma indicates that instead of going to the forest with uncontrolled senses, it is better or more secure to engage the senses in the service of the Lord. Even a household life can do no harm to a self-controlled person. Acting in this way, it cannot force him into material bondage. Srila Rupa Goswami has further enunciated this position. Iha yasya hare dasye karmana manasa gira nikhilasva apya avasthasu jivan mukta sa uchyate. Regardless of one's circumstances, if one engages his activities, mind and words in the devotional service of the Lord, he should be understood to be a liberated person. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur was a responsible officer and householder, yet his service to the cause of expanding the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is unique. Srila Prabhurananda Saraswati Thakur says, Durante Indriya Kala Sarpa Patali Protkata Damstrayate. The sense organs are certainly our greatest enemies, and they are therefore compared to venomous serpents. However, if a venomous serpent is bereft of its poisonous fangs, it is no longer fearful. Similarly, if the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, there is no need to fear their activities. The devotees of Krishna conscious movement move within this material world, but because their senses are fully engaged in the services of the Lord, they are always aloof from the material world. They are always living in a transcendental position. When we go on holidays, this time also I saw, there was a snake charmer with a cobra, and he was asking people to come and, touch it and all that. So, and that was possible, and the persons were willing to do that because it was defanged. And this is what we need to ensure, is that these venomous serpents around us, which is, and these are all the sense organs. Prabhupada is saying the sense organs are therefore compared to venomous serpents. And these venomous serpents need to be defanged. We need to be, so that they are bereft of their poisonous fangs. Then we don't need to be afraid of them. And even though we are in householder life, we no longer need to be fearful. He says it is no longer fearful. And how do you do that? Senses are engaged in the services of the Lord. So once you do that, there is no need to fear their activities. Next, 18. One who is situated in household life and who systematically conquers his mind and 5 sense organs is like a king in his fortress who conquers his powerful enemies. After one has been trained in household life and his lusty desires have decreased, he can move anywhere without danger. Text 19. Lord Brahma continued, my dear Prevrata, seek shelter inside the opening of the lotus of the feet of the Lord, whose navel is also like a lotus. Thus conquer the 6 organs, the mind and the knowledge acquiring senses. Accept material enjoyment because the Lord extraordinarily has ordered you to do this. You will thus always be liberated from material association and be able to carry out the Lord's orders in your constitutional position. So hearing this, Priyavrata will then accept the householder order and he will proceed. So, and Brahmaji has also told him that this is the Lord's order, and whatever enjoyment is coming, you please accept that because that's the Lord's desire. It's not your entitlement, but it is the Lord's desire. So with that, we'll pause here. Tomorrow, Prasad Prabhu will continue with the rest of the chapter, detailing further what happens in Maharaj Priyavata's life till he gets renounced. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I'll take a pause. 2 minutes we have. We can take any other questions that are there. If there are no questions, then we can also conclude the class. Thank you very much to all the devotees who have come today for the class. Apologies, I slightly still still some 1 minute is there, but I was aiming to finish 15 minutes earlier, but I'm not successful in that. I'm trying to also not miss out, but we please encourage you to please read the purports. They are very good purports again here, and take your time to reflect on this chapter. As I said, it's very, very important for all of us. Please forgive me if I've offended anyone or committed any mistakes. It's my doing. Thank you very much to Lilananda Prabhu and all the senior devotees for giving me this opportunity to be in Krishna consciousness for this particular period of time. Thank you very much. We'll conclude this class. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti Vaishnavavrind ki jai. Shri Ram. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.